Hello, everybody. Okay, yeah. I stopped my last stream because I couldn't hear myself. Turn that off for a sec. I couldn't hear myself. Turn the. Hang on. But yeah, that wasn't the problem. The problem there was no problem. It was just because my headphone volume I turned down because of the background music. In my last stream, I did the same thing because I realized that the background music from me was too loud. For you guys, it's perfectly fine. It should be perfectly fine. I haven't started playing it yet. I'll play it now. Hang on. Yeah. So I have to turn my headphone volume down so that I can concentrate. But the music should be the same level for you guys. But because I turned my headphone volume down, I couldn't hear myself through my headphones, but that's not a problem. Everything's fine. You know, I stopped the last recording and listened back to the video. Everything was fine. But yes, hello everybody. As the title suggests, today is once again not going to be a video game stream. It would had I streamed on Saturday, that would have been a video game stream, but I decided not to stream because last week was a very busy week at my job, and I honestly just didn't feel like doing a single thing other than I literally watched VTuber streams all day. That's literally all I did. But today I am streaming, and today, like I said, it won't be a gaming stream, but I will be talking about video games. Today I'm going to be diving down the history hole. We'll be talking about the history of video games. At least I'll be reading stuff about it and just reminiscing about it. I've done stuff like this before, but I just want to go back and do it again. You know, kind of go back, because I had fun when I wrote that research paper on this topic. You guys ever write a research paper where you feel so proud of and you get the grade back and you're just like, what the heck was the problem? Like, I was really excited about writing this paper, then I got the grade back. I didn't fail it, but it wasn't a terrific grade. Didn't feel very happy about that. But before I start talking about video games, as I mentioned, I am also an artist, and I intend to continue my music career on top of my VTubing career. And I don't know if you can see my taskbar. I don't think you can see it. You shouldn't be able to see it. But I have my workspace open for whenever I am making my music. So I'll show you guys what that looks like in a second, because I got excited about something earlier today. I just realized that several months ago, a company called Waves Audio, who I buy all my plugins from, they released a plugin that I had been asking them to make forever. So I'm gonna show you guys what that is right now. Let me go ahead and get over to the screen. Alright, yeah, here it is. So, whenever I am making my music, I use FL Studio. I think I'm gonna do myself a favor. Even though the background music is not going to be too loud for you guys, I'm gonna knock it down a little bit more. That's 20. And I'm gonna turn my headphone volume up some more, because I want to be able to hear myself when I'm talking. So unfortunately, my background music is gonna have to be insanely quiet for right now. Alright, anyway. Yeah, I use FL Studio when I am making my music. Maybe I should just turn my laptop volume down. Will that help? Will that help? I can still hear myself, right? Yes, I can. Sorry, I'm talking right into the microphone because I want to make sure I can hear myself. Hang on. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm talking right into my mic because I'm trying to make sure I want to be able to hear myself. Let me move it up some too. This app I got back in 2020, I believe it was. Which is also the year I started my YouTube channel. So in 2020, like I mentioned in my debut, when I first started oh my god, I love this song. When I first started this YouTube channel, it was more like a vlogging YouTube channel. I was talking about my journey into creating the album that I was working on that year. So one of the things that I did was I purchased this DAW. That's the actual name of what this software is called. It's called a DAW, Digital Audio Workstation. And I'm glad that I did, because first of all, I have a Windows laptop, so this was the only thing that I could get. You know, I tried to be cheap and get cheaper, and I even used like a couple of free DAWs. I'm gonna show you guys. I'm gonna go on my SoundCloud again, or maybe I can just talk about it. Like in my debut stream, I showed you guys my SoundCloud page, and I showed you guys the albums that I put up there. When I did the holiday album, what was the name of that software again? What was the name of it? Audacity? I think it was called Audacity. That's what I used to record that album, which is pathetic because that is not a software for recording music. It's a recording software, but it is not for recording music. That was just horrible. And then I got a free DAW called Cakewalk. And obviously by the name you can see that it's called Cakewalk because it's a cakewalk. It's an easy, simple DAW, and that's the problem. It was way too easy, and didn't have enough for me to feel comfortable keeping it. So I was just like, let me just do the professional thing and just buy a DAW. So since I'm using a Windows laptop, the only DAW that I could possibly use is FL Studio, because Pro Tools and Logic Pro, and I believe Ableton as well, you can only use those on Apple computers. So FL Studio was the only thing I could. That was an abrupt ending to the song. FL Studio is the only thing I can get. That's the only thing I could get, and I'm glad that I did. And throughout the months of me posting videos about my journey, I was making a lot of videos talking about things that I realized I was doing wrong, and my editing process and all that stuff. And it's just because I was learning. I was still in school learning the craft. So I kept making new videos, taking down the previous ones, because I realized that stuff I was saying in the old ones was wrong. It was a lot, guys, and then, as I mentioned in my debut stream, the album that I was putting together in 2020 ended up being taken down anyway. It was a giant waste of time and waste of money. There were 20 songs on that album, and I took the whole thing down and scrapped everything. I got rid of all the instrumentals that I bought. I got rid of everything because I was just incredibly disappointed with the way it turned out. And I mean, that was the first time using FL Studio, so I guess it was a great learning process, because it led me to the Life in a Dream album, which is on my SoundCloud, which I am incredibly proud of, seeing as though I did everything by myself. And I really thank everybody, all my professors, that taught me everything that I know now. I only took one theory class. It was Theory 1, so it was the beginning. This is not shuffling. Alright. Anyway. It was playing all main menu songs. I'm like, what is... I get easily distracted, if you couldn't tell. I'd like to thank all my professors who taught me everything that I know. I only took one theory class. I took one music history class, which inspired me to make this video, and continues to inspire me to play video game music in the background of my streams. I took a number of audio engineering classes between the two colleges that I went to. I did community college first, and then I went to university 2 years afterwards. And between all my 4 years of college, took a number of audio engineering based classes. And I've learned a lot. But FL Studio I've had to learn because I was so used to using Logic Pro 10 and Pro Tools, which I still don't know how to use Pro Tools, but I use that for some of my classes because Pro Tools is what most people use. It's like, apparently it's the easiest of the three that I just named. Or maybe Ableton is also another one that might be the easiest. So other people who taught me, yeah, let me show you that before I jump into this. Actually, let me go into let me go into the YouTube that I had pulled up. And show you guys some of the other people who inspired me on this journey. So, like I mentioned, the company where I buy a majority of my plugins from, it's these people, Waves Audio. Waves Audio are a company that they number one, what they mainly do is they create plugins. They have a lot of people in their agency, in their company, who make these plugins, and then they make the tutorial videos about the plugins, and they make a number of different videos as well. But just about all their videos are centered around how to use their plugins that they create themselves. So you just look through this, and I'm going to be talking about the one that you see right here in a second, because this is the one that they made several months ago, and this is the plugin that I've been asking for months. A huge issue that I've been having is not knowing how to create harmonies with any other plugins. I try to do it on my own, but I'm not a singer, so it's hard to make it sound good. Again, I did take a theory class and I took a piano class. I have an idea of how to, a little bit how to read, just a little bit, and I know the concept of the vocal training. What I do before I record every song, I'll get to that in a second. Let me just continue talking about these YouTube people first. So, Waves Audio, they are one channel who heavily inspires my music career. They've heavily taught me on my music journey. So, I think I skipped the other person. I should still be following them. A lot of YouTubers on my follow list, yes I know. Here they are. In the mix. They're a British channel who also teaches you audio engineering techniques. So I definitely love this guy's videos. He's been very, very helpful. And he also shows you a variety of different DAWs in which you can use his tactics. But one thing that I learned was what a lot of beginners like to do is they'll watch they'll watch videos like these and they'll just copy everything they see. Oops, no, not that. I didn't want to move that screen. I wanted to move myself. They'll just watch their videos and they'll copy everything that they say. Like literal copy and paste, and that's what I did too when I first started. That's not what they're trying to get you to do. They're not trying to get you to copy what they're doing, and they even tell you that. They don't want you copying what they're doing. It's a long song. Little Big Planet, really good game. And now some Persona music. They don't want you to copy what they're doing. They want you to take what they're teaching you and apply it for when you do it on your own. If you choose to do it on your own. So if you are somebody who is trying to engineer your own music, you do not watch videos like this and just copy everything, because then it's not gonna sound good, because the settings that everybody uses should be different. The settings you use should tailor to your voice. So yeah, this guy's another person who is greatly helpful in his videos. And now who else? There's one other person, there's a couple other people. It's production time. Yes, Reed Stefan. The greatest puppet in the game. That's literally his intro. It is a guy controlling a puppet for the purpose of teaching everybody engineering skills. Let me go to where his videos are. And this has got to be the most unique thing I've seen out of any engineer that I have learned anything from. Like, this guy is incredible. Like, he's literally a producer. He's produced music for other artists. And he shows you, in the form of a puppet, how he does everything that he does, and also uses a variety of different plugins. Not plugins, a variety of different DAWs. Plugins, obviously. But a variety of different softwares as well, and DAWs. I think what he uses mostly is Pro Tools and Ableton. I think he mostly uses those. But I'm pretty sure he's used Logic Pro 10, I believe. He's used that. He may have used FL Studio. So, yeah, this guy is a legend. Like, if it's possible, I would definitely work with this guy. Like, if that's possible, I would definitely work with him. Because I know that my stuff can be better than how I'm doing it. Now, my stuff, my stuff has definitely gotten way better. But I know that it could be better still. You know, the way that I do it is not how the big guns do it. You know, for the music, the record labels and agencies that have like music factored into it. They have the big mixer boards, which I have learned to use one mixer board before. I think it was called a Triton. I've learned that one time before, and I've learned the steps to powering everything on and off in the studio. I'm not sure if I can remember it right now, but all I know is the monitors should be the last thing you turn on when you're booting everything up. The monitors should be the last thing you turn on. And the first thing you turn... Okay, for some reason it said I disconnected and reconnected. I should be on my mobile hotspot, not my house Wi-Fi. There we go. If my model could come back. Oh, no, it's not gonna come back. I have to redo my model. Hang on, guys. Okay, I'm back now. Start the song over for you guys. Yeah, so this guy is definitely fantastic. I love this guy's videos, and I'm gonna continue watching this guy's videos whenever I am working on my music, because he's also very helpful. I've watched a variety of guys on YouTube I've watched a variety of videos trying to learn how to do certain things, but some people don't teach me as well as others. This guy is someone who's taught me very well. So, again, if it's possible, I would really love to work with this guy someday. Definitely watch his videos, because he's definitely one of the most unique guys you will find. One of the most unique producers you'll find on YouTube. Last but not least, a channel that really inspired me to continue downloading a whole bunch of video game music and listening to it in my free time and playing it in my streams. 8-Bit Music Theory. This guy is a musician himself, an expert in music theory. Because he's a musician, so of course he knows a lot of music theory. And he analyzes music in video games. That's what he chooses to do for his content. You know, he could obviously be doing something much different, but this is what he chooses to do. He chooses to analyze video game music, which is something that I feel like more people should be doing. Because composers for video games do not get enough credit, man, I swear. People always... When people talk about how great video games are, not everybody likes to mention the music. How incredible the soundtrack is. You know, If it really stands out, then there are people who do mention it, but you gotta understand, composers break their butts off. It's not just for film. They break their butts off for these games as well. And that's what this guy's channel is all about. He comes onto YouTube and he analyzes video game music. Like, look at this: Final Fantasy, Mega Man, Pokemon, Mario. He's done a variety of games where he's just analyzed their music. Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Now that game had an incredible soundtrack. Kirby in general has a phenomenal soundtrack. That's one thing I'm going to talk about when I'm doing this stream as well, is how great video game music has become. How great music videos, how great video game music is in general, but especially how it's advanced over the years. Can't wait to get into all that. But now I will go back and show you guys my workstation. And let me show you guys how I do my work. So when I press F9, that is gonna bring up my mixer board, my little digital mixer board. For those of you who have no idea of how DAWs work, first of all, engineers, they still use DAWs with their giant mixer board that they have, giant in-person mixer board that they have, because you have to use those in order to put your song together. You know, I don't know if this is literally how they did it in the past too, but I know these DAWs, a majority of them have existed since the 90s. So, it's not a new concept. But, they use, like, both the mixer board and the DAWs. And then you have the producers who just use the DAWs, because it is possible to put together a song just using a DAW and nothing else. So, this is my little digital mixer board, and in it I have 10 total tracks set up. My master track, which the master track controls the master volume of all of the tracks that are routed to it. Everything at the end of the day plays through the master track. Everything, all these channels, everything plays through the master track. Now, the reason why I have these tracks like this is because anything that you add into this playlist, if you want anything to change about it, you have to set it up as a track. You have to create a track and set it up so that the track is connected to that. So yeah, when you put something in here, you have to go into the settings and set it to one of your tracks. So I have the master track, which I have a plugin called the Fruity Limiter. Now in FL Studio, that stands for Fruity Loop Studio. All of their stock plugins are called Fruity most of them are called Fruity something. So the Fruity Limiter, this is something that I learned late into engineering my own music. I was having a serious problem where, let me see how I look at my stream. Yeah, it's fine. I was having a serious problem where every time I put together a song, it was always too quiet. This is just my recording session. I have a mastering session as well, which I'll show you guys after I'm done here. This was the plugin that I needed to use. After doing a lot of research, this is the plugin that I needed to use the entire time in order to make sure that my songs were loud enough in the mixing session before I started mastering. I had to make them louder in the mixing session before I moved it over to the mastering session to make it even louder. So, this is the plugin that I had to use to change the volume of my tracks. Another problem that I was having with the Isaiah album that I posted, that I was going to post but took down. The reason why I took it down, you could only hear my voice in the left ear, and that's because I only have one mic plugged in. And yet, I had it set up to record in stereo. So, because I had it set up to record in stereo instead of mono, signal shot to the input that's on the left side, which means my left ear. I finally, after doing a lot of research, figured out how to fix that problem. It was simple. Keep everything... Well, first of all, put my audio interface, change the setting to mono. Change that to mono. When I go to export the song, sorry I'm peeking a little bit. When I go to export my song, still export it in stereo so that you get the stereo imaging, but this is the problem. Where you see how it says 100% merged? I had to make mono tracks. So all of my vocal tracks are now set to mono. So when I record, it's gonna go through one ear until I route it to these tracks. They're mono tracks, so now I will hear them in both ears. But I will still work in stereo and export the song in stereo. The difference between mono and stereo. I think I might have said this in my debut video as well, and I have said it on my channel before. Mono means you're gonna hear every single sound in the middle. You can listen to this background music and you can tell that this is not stereo. You're hearing things in both of your ears if your settings are right. Whether it's on your TV or your headphones, if your settings are right, with this background music alone, you can tell this is stereo imaging because you're hearing things both on your left and on your right. You're hearing certain instruments only on your left side, some only on your right side, and then you have some other things going in the middle. Because it's not just music involving vocals, it's all music. Instrumental music as well. You need stereo imaging. You need the song to fill the room. You need it to feel like it's surrounding you. You need it to be spatial. Everything can't sound like it's dead in the middle. It's not as good. It's not as open. So, if you're not an audio engineer, I'm sure things that I'm saying are probably confusing. I'm trying to make it make sense. But yeah, that's the difference between mono versus stereo. On my verse track, that's anytime I'm recording a verse, it'll be routed to this track. I have a delay plugin for whenever I want there to be a delay in my voice. Like the delay. What a delay does is whenever you say something, it's like a repeat. It'll be the same thing that you said will repeat. You can change the change the volume so that it's not like as loud as your actual voice. But yeah, if you're a streamer, actually, you know about this anyway. If you're a streamer and you have like a Go XLR or something like that, you know about this anyway. You have a little bit of an idea of audio engineering. You know what delay means, and you know what reverb is and all that. I have also something, this is what the plugin looks like, my delay. I know it looked a little advanced. I'm not literally using every single one of these settings. The only thing that I'm changing is the rate in which I wanted to delay, the wet versus dry input, all the way down being all the way wet and all the way up being all the way dry. Dry versus wet, that's just how much you're able to hear the effect of the plugin. There's a dry tone down here as well, and there's a wet tone up here, and this is for the output section. So I'm not sure if that's the same as over here, because this is for input, this is for output. Delay module, stereo imaging, of course. I'm not sure what ping pong is, but that's what I have it set to. The time is mainly what I set it to. The time affects how quick or how slow, like the timing of the delay. Like, do you want it to go like here, here? Or do you want it to do like here, here? Like, how fast do you want the delay to happen? Alright, so let's get that out of here. And then the balance, I have a balance put on all of my plugins just to increase the volume of my voice because my microphone is kind of quiet. So I need something to boost the volume of my voice. The microphone that I use to record music, because it's not the same as the one that I use for streaming. I'm using my cheaper microphone for streaming because it's still a nice quality microphone, but I use the more expensive microphone for recording my music. I have a verse channel set up, a pre-chorus set up whenever I need to record a pre-chorus. This plugin is called the Vocal Bender. You can change the pitch and the formant of your voice, so it's a little vocal effects plugin. I've used this to just for the purpose of making my voice sound different in my songs. Like if you look through the Life in a Dream album, I've experimented with this a lot. Like I'm gonna be continuing to experiment with that because I want to have a nice little comedic effect where I'm changing my voice for certain parts of the song. So this will certainly stay. I'm trying to figure out the difference between pitch and formant because the pitch, obviously, that's self-explanatory, but the formant is like, I guess like you could go from a deep to a high pitch either way. With either one, I have to look up the difference between pitch and formant. But I know that if you want to have like a chipmunk sounding voice, you need both the pitch and formant turned all the way up, not just the pitch. Because your pitch is just, it's gonna sound like your voice, but much higher. Formant actually is changing like how high the tone is. So that's how you get it to sound more like a chipmunk or more like a deep voice. So that's the Vocal Bender. Then I have a chorus channel set up. Again, I got the Vocal Bender set up. I'm deleting this one. I'm not using the Fruity Chorus plugin anymore, because there's something else that I'm gonna put there if I ever need it. Well, you know what? No, maybe I'll keep it. This is what Fruity Chorus. Fruity Chorus is a plugin that for just making the chorus sound more like a chorus. Because some audio engineers don't understand that when you want it to sound like a chorus, it can't just be like the same way you set up your verse, where it's just your voice. And even in verses for a lot of songs, like in a lot of pop songs, even the verses, they add stuff to it to make it fill the room more. But a chorus is supposed to do that. It's supposed to fill the room. The chorus is supposed to be like the punch. So it's gotta be more than just your dry voice. You know, you gotta add something to it so that it feels more effective. It's already been almost an hour. Plug my computer in. Not sure why that turned my thing off. But yeah. Then I got my ad-libs. You gotta have ad-libs. Especially if you're a rapper like me. You have to have ad-libs. It just makes it more dramatic. It fills the empty spaces. Like if it's just your voice. If it's just your voice, you're rapping and then you're pausing and there's nothing else to follow that pause. You know, that's kind of awkward. So the ad-lib just fills in those silences. Also, if you happen to run out of breath, the ad-lib kind of helps to fill in what you can't record. A lot of people do something called a punch. I can't do that because I don't have an engineer with me, working with me. I have to have an engineer with me to be able to punch in and out. Otherwise, it's going to be too much editing. So a punch is when you start your recording and you feel yourself mess up or you run out of breath and so you stop. What they could literally just do was punch. So they start from where you left off and you just continue. And then they can edit it so that it sounds like you didn't make a mistake. So that's a punch. something I also learned while in school. I got the vocal bender on here too, because in case I want to change anything. Now, AdLib 2 is what has the new Waves Harmony plugin that I bought. Originally, what I used was this, the Ovox. This was the only plugin good enough from Waves that I could figure out how to use, like how to figure out how to do any kind of harmony with, because you have your two voices, and you can change the tune and the format and everything like that here, and you could do all kinds of modulating effects as well. So this was the only basically harmonizing and note changing plugin that they had before Waves Harmony, but this is not the same. It's not the same. It wasn't fulfilling what I wanted to fulfill as well as I know the Waves Harmony will. Very nostalgic music coming on right now, guys. Very nostalgic music. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Anyway. There were other people who were able to get it to work for them, but I just could not figure out how to get that to work out for me as well. So, for all the songs in the Life in a Dream album where I attempted to do harmonies, it didn't sound as good as it hopefully will once I start using Waves Harmony. Now, this plugin looks incredibly advanced, but that's why you just research until you start to get it. I slowly started to get it after a while. I don't even use all the settings that are here. Like, I don't use all the settings. I've used the EQ setting before. I've used that before. The problem with me doing this on a laptop, I feel like the plugins look a lot bigger on my screen than they would for somebody using, let me move it over some, for somebody using a desktop computer for their editing. Love the song. So yeah, that's one thing, that's one problem about doing this on a laptop. But yeah, that's the Ovox. And speaking of Apple devices, one thing that I also mentioned in my debut stream, since I'm using a Samsung phone, an Android phone, for the tracking, that's the only explanation that I could have for right now as to why my tracking is not as good as the big time VTubers. They all use iPhones for their tracking because iPhones have much better tracking. So, like I can't, like, my eyes don't track. My eyebrows don't track. Oh my god, that's the same game. Some more Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, like, my eyes and my eyebrows, they don't track, so I can't, like, wink or raise my eyebrows like other people can. Maybe I can and I just haven't worked out the settings yet, but as of right now, I have no tracking on my eyes or eyebrows. But that's the Ovox. Let's take a look at the Waves Harmony plugin, and it's massive again. And again, it looks incredibly complicated, but I'd watched videos on it before I started the stream, and I have an idea of how this works. I already know how I'm going to be using it. They have three or four different modes. You can either, they have an option called MIDI, which MIDI, I don't remember what MIDI stands for, but I know that MIDI involves an external instrument, mostly a keyboard. People will hook that up to their setup so that they can just play the keyboard. Most of the time, that's what producers will do. Producers, when they're making their beats, they'll hook up a MIDI instead of using their computer keyboard. They hook up a MIDI and they'll play stuff into it. When I say hook up a MIDI, I mean their external instrument. Whether a keyboard or a guitar, any kind of external instrument, and they'll play into it. That's what you can do on this plugin as well, and on Ovox. You can hook up a MIDI and play into it. So in this case with Waves Harmony, you can record into it and just change the notes via your external keyboard. But that setting... Oh, I thought this was the same game. The same song we heard earlier. I missed this game too. I can't believe I played this before I played Smash. The TMNT Smash Up. How did I play this before I played Super Smash Brothers? Anyway. The second way you can go about doing this, because that first way really is only for people who are experienced musicians, or pianists specifically. Anyone who was a... Oh, well, musician in general too. Anybody that is an experienced musician will use that setting. They will use the MIDI option where they will play into it in order to change the notes and everything. Another option was to just click in and add stuff yourself. To click in the voices yourself, like there's a fifth, there's a seventh, there's a second. Right clicking is how I delete it. And once you add them in, you can just change it. Change the I believe this is how you change like not the volume, but like the pitch of it. But again, I'm not going to do that because that's also something that people who are experienced in music theory will be doing. I'm not experienced in music theory. I've only taken one music theory class. I only get the general idea of it. I still have the theory textbooks, so I could get better. The U stands... Wow, that was a clip. The U stands for unison, which, when it comes to like a giant mixer board or the mixer boards in the FL Studio, unison is like the middle, like that line right in the middle. Let me get rid of this. Like, I don't know if you guys can see this little dash next to these. This will be unison. Volume 100%. You could turn it up more and give the track more signal, or you could turn it down. Some tracks I'm giving them more signal, but down here is unison. That's like middle volume. It's like average volume. So, oh, let me open that plugin back up, because I'm not done with it. The option that I'm going to be using is the easiest option because I'm new to the plugin, and again, I'm not experienced with music theory. I've spent so much time talking about this, we haven't even gotten into the basis of the stream yet. Way to fill in the time. It's been 50 minutes. What I'm going to be using is the generate notes option. I'm using the generate notes option, which self-explanatory, that lets the plugin do the work for you. Essentially, all I'm going to be doing is setting the key of the song that I'm working in, whether it's in major or minor, decide what kind of chords I want it to play, whether it's I could choose from literally any of these options. They have a lot of options to choose from. And they also have like whatever harmonies you want to try. So there's a lot of options that you can try. I'll just mess around with it and see which one I like the most. Because essentially that's still how you do the work yourself. You pick which one you like the most, but if you want to still mess with it, you can. I don't know if I'm gonna mess with any of these, because again, I'll have to gain more experience with the app, with the plugin before I start doing any of that. But they also have a delay option, so that's gonna delay when the harmony starts. They have a filter option. You can change the... This is like EQ based stuff, like a band. It's like, I think these are called a band. A band. But yeah, this is what the this is like the shape of the filter. So when you're using an EQ, you'll see this stuff too. I could show you the EQ real quick so that you understand what I'm talking about. This is my equalizer. Now you see these here too. And you got the shapes over here too. There's different things that these all do. They can either go up and down, side to side. They can either go up and down or side to side. So it's essentially like a filter, like, because the more you change these, the more it'll affect your voice. And I guess the filter in the harmony plugin, depending on the shape that you decide, and that will have an effect on how the harmonies sound. I can't remember the names of all of them, but because I have them set to this, let me see if it says it. If I set it to this, yeah, you see now how it's going like this, instead of how it was the last time, like this. So it's just changing the shape. So this is more of a left to right. The other was a right to left, and the other was like in the middle. You have high pass filters, low pass filters, and so I think that might have been what we were looking at, a high pass versus a low pass. I don't know. But whenever you are mixing vocals, the EQ, in my opinion, is the most important plugin when you are mixing. Again, I'm sorry, I know this has nothing to do with the name of the stream. I didn't clickbait you guys. We're gonna get into it. Man, this music is bumping. The EQ is probably the most important thing you will use when you're mixing vocals, because this eventually will shape how your voice will sound. This is how you decide what your voice is, without all the other plugins involved. Each of these voices is placed within a certain range. So it's going from the lowest frequency to the highest frequency. My voice doesn't necessarily get this low, but I'm still going to see if there's anything I can take out. What you do with the EQ is you edit out any frequencies that you don't want. So, because like I said, the voices are all set up within a certain frequency, and what you do is you pull these up so that the frequency becomes more audible. You raise it up and you move it around until you hit a certain part where it sounds like absolute crap, and then you pull it down, because that's essentially going to take out that bad frequency. And that essentially is how you will shape the way your voice will sound. That's how you make your voice sound as clear, crisp, and beautiful as possible. But all the other plugins are very important still, because like your compressor makes the loud voices quieter, makes the quiet noises louder. It keeps you from... in a way, kind of keeps you from like peaking, or... it keeps you from like being way too loud or way too quiet. Like, it keeps you nice and balanced. So again, very important plugin. I need this. This is auto-tunes. However, I don't use strong auto-tunes in my music anymore. For certain, depending on the song. For some songs I do. I don't use a strong amount of auto-tune, because I feel like I don't need a strong amount of auto-tune. Even though I can't sing, I feel like my voice is still pretty good enough. Like, I'm not absolute dog crap at singing. Like, I'm good enough to where I don't need a significant amount of auto-tune. One thing that I do before I start recording, I have a keyboard in my basement. Whatever key I'm working in, I play the notes that are within that key, and I just sing the notes. I try to sing the notes and get my pitch to be nice and correct before I hop onto the track and start singing. Now, there's still going to be plenty of times where I stop and do it over because I think I sound horrible. Because that's the problem. People think that if they use the auto-tunes that they can just sing however the heck they want and it'll sound good no matter what. No. You still have to sing accurately. For whatever key the song is, however you wrote your chorus, you need to sing it exactly how you envision it, otherwise it will still sound like crap. Obviously, make sure you're in the right key, but even if you're in the right key, if you sound like absolute crap singing the song, it's not gonna, even auto-tunes can't save you. You still need to sing it as accurately as you possibly can for the auto-tunes to sound good. But I can't wait to start using this plugin. I really cannot wait to see how good it makes my choruses and ad-libs sound. I really cannot wait to find that out. But yeah, that's enough of this plugin. Oops, hit the wrong button. That's enough of this. Let's get into the basis of what today's stream was supposed to be about. The shuffling on this app really is horrible. They're playing a bunch of songs from the same game. I gotta remember which site I use. It was history.com, of course. Had to find it. So, what I'm going to be doing with this is just, as I'm reading, I'll like stop and look up certain things. Just for the reminiscing factor of it. I don't know why I'm so hot, I have my window open. Because I want to get an idea of what people had to go through back in the day. But as you can see from this picture, I can already see that they're using... This says Nintendo Super Famicom. I don't know if that means this is the Super Nintendo. I mean, that's what the controllers look like. Right off the bat, I already know... Family computer, well. Right off the bat, I already know... These things, people have talked about... Like, you've seen what the games look like for a Super Nintendo. First of all, let me show you what a Super Nintendo... You guys have seen this. Let me show you what the Super Nintendo game discs look like. The game cartridges, yeah. Yeah. This is what the Super Nintendo game cartridges looked like. And it's like you had to like people were saying that like when the game wasn't working right, you had to like take it out, blow into it. People slap it. It's like they do all kinds of stuff with this to get this thing to work. You know, people have had to struggle getting their Super Nintendos to function. I'm already way ahead of the timeline though. I shouldn't be talking about Super Nintendos yet, but I just wanted to bring that up since it was in the picture. So yeah, I'll come back to this picture and talk more about this. I'll talk about other specific games. Let me go ahead and read this. if these pop-ups will get out of here. Today's video games make up $100 billion, make up a $100 billion global industry, and nearly 2/3 of American homes have household members who play video games regularly. Wow. The early days. Alright, here we go. Though video games are found today in homes worldwide, they actually got their start in the recent labs of scientists. Right off the bat, we got science. In 1952, a British professor, of course, British. It just feels like a lot of good stuff, a lot of the best things that we have in the United States don't come from the United States. They come from somewhere else. Created OXO, also known as Noughts and Crosses or a tic-tac-toe. Wow, OXO, that's what they called it? What is Noughts and Crosses? Okay, well I guess that's, okay. Tic-tac-toe. As part of his doctoral dissertation. Oh my gosh. I'm sure people are really thanking him for that. At the University of Cambridge, of course, Cambridge. And in 1958, William Higginbottom, I think that's how you say his name, William Higginbottom, created Tennis for Two on a large analog computer and connected oscilloscope screen for the annual Visitors' Day at Brookhaven National Laboratory in Upton, New York. Tennis for Two. Is there a picture of that? Really? I guess this is what it looked like. That's... well, okay. Alright. I hate when Google does this. Whenever you buy something from somewhere, all of a sudden you start seeing pop-up ads for it. No matter where what other website you're on. In 1962, Steve Russell at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology invented Space War, a computer-based space combat video game for the PDP, Programmed Data Processor. Let me see if that has a picture. Programmed Data Processor. Why are these pictures so much smaller than what they... okay. Jeez. Digital PDP 12. It's got the screen connected to it. And it's got... that is a lot. That is a lot. People would... I would be, like, confused looking at this thing. I'll be overwhelmed. This is like PC games for the old days. Okay, let's look up a picture of Space War now. Let's see what that looks like. I don't know which one is right. Let me be specific. I guess not. Yeah, it's gonna be hard to find pictures of some of this stuff. Some of the old stuff, it's gonna be hard to find pictures of those. But yeah, a computer-based space combat video game for the PDP, then a cutting-edge computer mostly found at universities. Wow, really? So if you were a college student, you know, this was like your go-to place. It was the first video game that could be played on multiple computer installations. Very nice. It's very interesting. I really wonder what people looked like going, like, in their universities, going up to these ginormous machines and just, like, crouching down and mashing those buttons on that very tiny screen. Alright, let's keep going. Dawn of the home console. In 1967, developers at Saunders Associates Inc., led by Ralph Baer, invented a prototype multiplayer multi-program video game system that could be played on a television, and it was known as the Brown Box. Yeah, I guess people back in the day had trouble coming up with names for stuff. The Brown Box? Let's see what that looks like. Oh my goodness! It's literally a brown wooden box. There is no way anybody looked at this and thought it was a game system. Like, I'm sorry for making fun of this, but it's like there is no way that people looked at this and thought it was a game system. I would have looked at this and not known what the heck it was. I would have looked at it too soon and thought it was somebody's dresser. This thing literally looks like my dressers in my room. But apparently this was a game system, and you could play it on your TV. The first console that you could play on your TV. That is insane. The very first console that you can play on your TV was literally a wooden box. Of all my years of living, I have never known this. I'm gonna have to ask my parents about this, or maybe my grandparents about this, and see if they knew about this, because seriously, that is... That's just insane. Oops. Sorry, I was looking at my stream. Just trying to see where it was at. That is insane. Let me just admire this picture a little more. What if I made this my Twitter profile picture and just make this my Twitter profile picture real quick and just be like, just tweet out, this is what people used to play with. You see, now if you ever watched a cartoon and someone ever said, I remember the days when when games used to just be on a brown box, now you can't make fun of it because it's actually true. They're literally not lying to you. Back in the day, games used to literally be on a brown box. Let's keep going. Baer, who is sometimes referred to as the father of video games, really, licensed his device to Magnavox, which sold the system to consumers as the Odyssey, the first video game home console in 1972. So they changed the name to the Odyssey. I think that's what they said. The next 5 years, the primitive Odyssey console will commercially fizzle and die out. Wow, only after a few years. I mean, that's understandable, guys. I mean, seriously. It is literally a brown box. If you told me you created a game system and named it the Odyssey, I would be very disappointed if you showed me this. It's like, dude, I'm thinking you're getting ready to show me something like... But again, I wouldn't be disappointed if it was 1967. Or whatever year they said it was. But in 2023, yeah, if somebody said, I just made the best game, the game system of the future, and they showed me this. It's like, dude, it literally looks like you glued things onto a wooden box. And called it a game system. Keep going to that page, sorry. What year did they said? 1972. Yet, one of the Odyssey's 28 games was the inspiration for Atari's Pong, the first arcade video game, which the company released in 72. In 75, Atari released a home version of Pong, which was as successful as its arcade counterpart. So, let me look up something else for a second. Atari is a brand name that has been, owned by several entities since its inception in 1972. So Atari started in 1972. Yeah, we all know what Atari is. We should all know what Atari is. Now let's look at some pictures of Atari. Oh my goodness, look at this. Sorry, I didn't mean to click on. Look at this crap. I'm not trying to click on the ads. Now I know for all of you boomers out there, this is very nostalgic for you right now, seeing this picture. All my years of living, I never knew what the actual Atari system looked like until now. I never bothered to look it up. I never knew what it looked like until now. I know what Pong is, obviously. And you know why I know what that is? Because let me show you something that I did own. Let me see if I can find it. I'm not gonna talk about it yet because it's way ahead of the Atari's time. Yeah, there it is. The Atari Anthology. One day I'm gonna look in my basement one day and see if I still have this sitting in that bag full of PS2 games that I've owned. The Atari Anthology. It was a collection of Atari games, and it was released for the PS2. There were a lot of companies that they started way back in the day before the 2000s started, and when they kind of died out, before then they made a game that combined all of their creations into one game, into one thing, and they released it on the PS2. There's other ones coming up that I'll show you guys that I've owned. But yeah, I remember this game perfectly. Let's keep going. Maxima Magnavox, along with Sanders Associates, would eventually sue Atari for copyright infringement. I'm gonna have to go back and figure out why. Bear, who's referred to as father, licensed his device to Magnavox, which sold the system to consumers. Atari settled and became an Odyssey licensee over the next 20 years. I guess they felt like because Odyssey was kind of the first to start doing this, all of a sudden when Atari came and started doing it too, all of a sudden they felt like it was a problem. And Magnavox went on to win more than $100 million in copyright lawsuits related to the Odyssey and its video game patents. That is absolutely ridiculous. So they felt like because they were the start of video games, anybody who tried to make video games after them was infringing upon them. Why do we need your permission to make games? This could not have been a thing that lasted forever. In 1977, Atari released the Atari 2600, also known as the Video Computer System, a home console that featured joysticks and interchangeable game cartridges that played multicolored games, effectively kicking off the second generation of video game consoles. Alright, so there you go, 1977. Oops. There you go, 1977. Second generation. What did they say the name was? The Atari 2600. Okay, that's what we were looking at. We were looking at the 2600. Okay. The video game industry had a few notable milestones in the late 70s and early 1980s, including the release of Space Invaders, which is an arcade game that came out in 1978. The launch of Activision. Oh, I remember that company. Activision, the first third-party game developer, which developed software without making consoles or arcade cabinets. In 79, the introduction to the United States of Japan's hugely popular Pac-Man. Yeah, yep. So hold on, two things I want to look at before I move on. Activision. An American video game publisher based in Santa Monica, California. It serves as the publishing business for its parent company, Blizzard. And okay, and they started in '79. Yeah, I've owned games that had Activision help out with it. And then the other thing they said, yeah, Pac-Man. We all know Pac-Man, 1980 maze action video game developed and released by Namco for arcades. In North America, the game was released by Midway. And there you go, Midway. Yeah, Namco and Midway. Midway no longer exists, but now that Midway was mentioned, that could be something that I show you guys. This is what Pac-Man obviously looks like now, but this is how he looked like in the beginning. But now that they mentioned Midway, I owned the first and second Midway arcade treasures. These were games created in order to honor all of Midway's creations. So we mostly played the second game because the games in it were better, but yeah, it had so many great games in there, and my siblings and I, we played the heck out of this. I think Rampage World Tour was probably all of our favorite games to play, but we did mess around with Pit Fighter, obviously the Mortal Kombat games. I think there was one called Gauntlet that we played. Yeah, there it is, Gauntlet 2. Yeah, bringing back a lot of memories. So the song. Alright, moving on with the history. Nintendo's creation of Donkey Kong. Yeah, when did Nintendo start? I actually don't even know that. When did Nintendo start? In 1880. What? In 1889. My god, Nintendo. Alright, but anyway, Nintendo's creation of Donkey Kong, that was until 94, which introduced the world to the character Mario. Okay, no, I'm not talking about the 1994 Donkey Kong Country games. They're talking about when Mario started in the 80s. Yeah, you guys know how Mario looked. I don't believe this was the first game, but yeah, Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo Entertainment System, or the NES. Yeah, you guys should know about this. That's how Mario looked at the beginning. And they kept this outfit for the future Mario games that came out. Whenever he got the you know, the fire power, that was the outfit that he wore. And again, they mentioned the Super Nintendo, not Super Nintendo, the NES. Yeah, because that looks different. Yeah, this is the NES. I never played on this thing, but I've seen this controller in images all the time. That's the little plug to hook up to your TV. The old game systems had these little color cords that you had to hook up into the ports in the old TVs. And that was a mess dealing with that, because if one cord plugged out by mistake, everything would change. And sometimes even the color cords, even when they're all plugged in, it still looked messed up. But that was just annoying, having to plug in all those cords. Hence why they have HDMI cords, which we'll get to that later. But yeah, the NES, I've never played that. What I did play was the Super Nintendo. I'll look at that now. This is what I've played. I've played this since, like, I've played this since I was a kid, because the first game system that I played was the PS2, but quickly after being introduced to the PS2, I was introduced to this game system because my parents had it. And they had a lot of games on it as well. So, this was the power, this is to reset, this is to plug in your controllers. This is the way you put the game cartridge that I showed you guys in that big box. That's where you plug it in. And I've played a variety of games I've played a variety of games on this system. I'm gonna try to see if I can find all of it. I think one of them was Pit Fighter, though. That showed up in Midway Arcade Treasures, but I think... Let me look it up real quick, hang on. Yeah, Pit Fighter was insane. Like, that was one game that my brother and I, we just thought it was very cool. The gameplay... We definitely enjoyed that game. It was so chaotic. That was the good thing about it. Just incredibly chaotic game. And of course, you had the Mortal Kombat games. And Midway Arcade Treasures had these in there too, and again, wasn't too into these kinds of games, but I did play them when I had the Midway Arcade Treasures games. But I did a lot of Mario games. Let me see if I can find the game. Yeah, I think this. Yeah, yep. This is the game that I played on the Super Nintendo. Here's a good picture. We were every time we went to our grandmother's house, this was one of the game. This was the game. This and the Super Mario Kart. I'll show a picture of that in a second. We obviously never finished this game, but it felt like every time we got a little bit further in. So, as kids, we barely finished any games. We just played just to play. We didn't even bother finishing the whole games. Most of the games that we even played. It's a shame. But yeah, this game, I wish there was a way I could still play these games. Like, I know the Switch was trying to bring back some older Mario games for a limited time. Of course, they start showing Mario Kart 8. Yeah, here you go. The gameplay of this game was it was hilarious. This was definitely like a trend-setting game. I don't know if it started racing games, but like this was definitely one of those games that had to be a huge inspiration for future racing games. The way racing games looked back in that day, you know, obviously it'll make you laugh now, but this is what they had back then, and it was still fun to play. Sorry, I'm like being... Sorry, there's like so many pauses. I'm just trying to think about what I want to say. We played the heck out of this game as well. So that's just some of the games that we played on the Super Nintendo. I'm trying to think of any others that I remember, but I can't really think of any other ones. Microsoft's release of its first flight simulator game. That name is definitely familiar, but I don't know if I ever played it. The video game Crash in... Oh, wow, really? In 1983. So the bite of 83 happened to video games? The North American video game industry experienced a major crash due to a number of factors. including an oversaturated game console market. Competition from computer gaming, really, so even in the 80s, computer gaming was a competitor to game system games. So even in the 80s, there were still people on their computers more often than the game systems. What else? And a surplus of overhyped, low-quality games. Oh, wow. Guys, it was 1983. You couldn't just be grateful. It's all they had. Like, you can't call it low quality when it's 1983. Such as the infamous E.T., an Atari game based on the eponymous movie, and often considered the worst game ever created. Well, now I can kind of understand, because back then it must have been impossible to make a good video game based on a film that came out at that time, because you didn't have the technology like what you have now. So animation styles and things like that will probably look like garbage. Lasting a couple of years, the crash led to the bankruptcy of several home computer and video game console companies. The video game home industry began to recover in '85 when the Nintendo Entertainment System, called Famicom in Japan, came to the United States, so the NES saved the video game industry. It had improved 8-bit graphics, colors, sound, and gameplay over previous consoles. Wow, look at Nintendo. Literally saving the video game industry. This is why I love Nintendo so much. This is why a majority of the games that I stream are on Nintendo game systems. Mostly really the Switch. I'm gonna see if I could play any Wii games up here. I would have to bring the Wii upstairs from my basement. Nintendo, a Japanese company that began as a playing card manufacturer in 1889, released a number of important video game franchises still around today, such as Super Mario Bros., of course, and The Legend of Zelda, and Metroid. Yeah, take a look, like... One second. So you guys see all these characters from the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate game. Something that I did a while ago is I tried to think about what characters, like what was the order of characters in Smash from oldest to newest. Pac-Man and Mr. Game & Watch are the oldest. I think they both started in 1980. Mr. Game & Watch is that's not a game, I don't believe. I think that's something else, but it started in 1880. Pac-Man also started in 1980. Mario started in basically 85. I think it's not actually 85, but Super Mario Bros. Started in 85. Metroid, I'm pretty sure started in the early 90s. I believe. I believe that started in the early 90s. Donkey Kong started in the early 90s. Zelda is from the 80s. Kirby is from the 90s, early 90s. So let's take a look. Let me see. But I know that Zelda and Final Fantasy started in the 80s. And yeah, 1986 is when The Legend of Zelda started. Wait, did Final Fantasy actually that did start in the 80s, right? Yeah, 1987, a year after. That's what I thought. Final Fantasy 1987. That couldn't be what the game is. Something that, here we go. Something that I've realized about RPGs, a lot of RPG game series, every game's story is different. It's like a lot of RPG games, their stories are all different. They're not the same. Like, every game doesn't involve the same characters. That's another game I just thought about, but I'm pretty sure started. Let me see if I can find it. Yoshi games, of course, they started in the 90s. Earthbound started in the 90s. Pokemon started in the 90s. The game started before the show did. Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem, I believe, started in the 80s. Of course, they're going to show the game that just came out. Oh no, it started in 1990. I thought it started in the 80s. Alright. Well, I've only ever played one Fire Emblem game and I didn't even finish it because I didn't feel like it. I was playing Three Hopes and I kind of stopped. Didn't really feel like it. Was never really a huge fan of the Fire Emblem series, but it is terrific. The characters are very good to fight as in Smash. I might go back to Three Hopes, but I'm not going to stream it. If I do go back to that game, it's going to be a long time from now, because there's other games I'm trying to get to first. But yeah, let's see, who else is on here? Kid Icarus started in the 90s, I believe. Sonic started in the 90s. There's a game that I have that involves all of his games from the 90s all into one thing, the Sonic Mecha Collection game, which the song that you heard at the very beginning of my stream, at the starting soon screen, it's from that game. Punch-Out is what Little Mac is from, and I believe that started in the 90s as well. Mega Man started in the 80s. I know Mega Man started in the 80s. I believe it was 1988 when Mega Man started. Animal Crossing started in the early thousands. Alright, well, let's keep going. It's cool that they mentioned these three games because these were three huge games. Huge game franchises, and they had to have been especially throughout the 80s and 90s. But I thought they would have mentioned Final Fantasy though, because I feel like I would have thought that would be more popular than Metroid. Oops. I would have thought Final Fantasy was more popular than Metroid. There's a lot more games. Additionally, Nintendo imposed various regulations on third-party games developed for its system, helping to combat rushed and low-quality software. Nice. A good business decision. Third-party developers released many other long-lasting franchises such as Capcom's... Okay, well here you go, Mega Man, Konami's Castlevania, another game that's involved in Smash, Square Enix's Final Fantasy. Okay, good, they are mentioning that. Also involved in Smash. And Enix's Dragon Quest, also involved. I think that game also started in the 90s. Dragon Quest is also in Smash. And these would all merge to become Square Enix. Okay, so Square and Enix were separate at first, that's what they're saying. Enix made Dragon Quest and Square made Final Fantasy, then they merged to become Square Enix. Or Enix, however you say it. Well, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. I never knew that. In 1989, Nintendo made waves again by popularizing handheld gaming with the release of its 8-bit Game Boy. Oh, here we go. Let's look at a picture of that. Whenever I need to figure out why it's doing this. I already tried to set Google as my default search browser, and yet still, it just goes to Bing. Like, nobody uses Bing. But yeah, the Game Boy. I didn't have the one that looked like this, or like this. I had the one that looked like this. That's an ad. Where are just the pictures? Yeah, I had the one that looked like this. Well, I didn't own it, but I played the one that looked like this. Played on the one that looked like this. A big game that I was always playing on this console. Oops. Pretty sure it was this game. Yeah. Sonic Advance 3. That was a game I was constantly playing on my cousin's Game Boy. Another game that I did, a friend of mine kind of like lent me his Game Boy one time, and that was the one and only time. I didn't even know what I was doing, but that was the one and only time I played a Pokemon game. I'm sure that I'm 100% sure that I am missing out, but I was never a huge fan of Pokemon, so I don't know like a lot of names. I didn't play a lot of the games. I've thought about it many times, but yeah, I was never a huge Pokemon person, so sorry to all the people who are diehard Pokemon fans. I do wish that they had more characters in Smash from Pokemon though, just because it's such a huge franchise. I did watch some of the shows. Like in middle school, I was all over the Black and White series. I think I watched some of the X and Y series. But yeah, I just never played any of the games. I was more into the shows than the games. Even though I'm sure the games are much more interesting than the shows. And I've seen gameplays of the games. Like, I watch other people play the games. I know a lot of people are streaming the Scarlet and Violet games that just came out. A lot of people have been streaming that. That's like one of the most popular games that have come out recently. Alright, well, let's keep going. I'm surprised they haven't mentioned Pokemon yet. on this list. In '89, Nintendo made waves again. I read that already. Oh, here you go, the Nintendo DS 2004 and 3DS in 2011. So I can show this. Another cousin of mine owned a DS, and a game that we played on there, I believe, was called this. Yes. Sonic Rush. '2004 is when the DS started that. I didn't know there was a second game. I only played the first game. I wish they'd show a picture of the gameplay of it, but oh well. That put me on to Blaze. Blaze is like my favorite Sonic character, next to Shadow. Get over there. The first console war in 1989, Sega released... A lot of stuff happened in '89. Sega released its 16-bit Genesis console in North America as a successor to its 1986 Sega Master System, which failed to adequately compete against the NES. With its technological superiority to the NES, clever marketing, and the 1991 release of the Sonic the Hedgehog game. There you go. I had the Sonic Mega Collection game, and I mostly played the second and third Sonic the Hedgehog games. I didn't touch the first one as much, just because I liked Tails and Knuckles. I don't think Knuckles was a playable character. Yeah, he was a playable character in the third game, but not in the story mode. The Genesis made significant headway again. I want to see what the picture of this looks like. The Sega Genesis. Oh, okay. So this is what the Sega Genesis looks like. Looks kind of like a telephone. Like one of those telephone machines. Like the controller looks like you could just like hang it up. But I guess this was the first system where you could play the Sonic the Hedgehog game. The reason I talked about video game music earlier is because a lot of the games that I'm mentioning have some incredibly unique soundtracks. That's what I like about Nintendo games specifically as well. Mostly Nintendo games, because mostly Nintendo games are the best at unique soundtracks. Like so many Nintendo games, their soundtracks are just beyond unique. So many of the most popular soundtracks come from Nintendo games or games that released on Nintendo systems. Like when you think about Mario, and anybody in any country that knows Mario, if you ask them, name a song, to sing a song, or hum a song from Mario's all-time soundtrack, what song do you think they're gonna start humming? Dun 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 dun. Because that song is way too iconic. Now what about Sonic? If somebody asks them to hum a Sonic song, they're gonna hum the song from the Green Hill Zone from the first Sonic the Hedgehog game. Now Kirby has a variety of very popular... I don't really know if there's one song from Kirby that stands out more than any other one. But Kirby has some very unique music. Now Zelda, Zelda, the main theme, obviously, is a very popular theme. Final Fantasy, I've never played Final Fantasy games, but I'm sure that they have plenty of very popular songs. Like in Smash, whenever Cloud wins, the dun 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 dun. What else? Yeah, Nintendo games, they just go crazy with the soundtrack, and it's always so unique. Shout out to all the composers. Nintendo then released its 16-bit Super NES console in 1991, thus creating the first console war between the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. There's always gonna be wars. Every time somebody makes one thing, somebody else wants to make something just like it, because they want to compete with it. Nintendo made the GameCube later on. Sony made the PlayStation, and I'm sure it's going to talk about that. The early to mid 1990s saw the release of a wealth of popular games on both consoles, including new franchises such as Street Fighter, of course. How you gonna say new franchises and then say Street Fighter 2? And Mortal Kombat, fighting games that depicted blood and gore on the Genesis version of the game. In response to the violent game, as well as congressional hearings about violent video games, Sega created the Video Game Rating Council in 1993 to provide descriptive labeling for every game. Wow. So that's what started it? They saw Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat and were like, okay, we need to start putting ratings on these games. I see blood and guts, we gotta start putting ratings on these games. That makes total sense. Like, Mortal Kombat is so chaotic. Like, the Mortal Kombat! Like, I'm sure when people saw that for the first time, they were just stunned. They couldn't even speak. They just started, Mortal Kombat! And did they see people getting their heads cut, their heads chopped off? They getting people sliced in half, and they're just like, oh my god, we gotta start putting ratings on these games! Shout out to the developers of Mortal Kombat for, you know, for Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. Shout out to the developers of those games. You guys kind of started a new thing with games. You kind of show people that, you know, we don't have to be afraid, just as long as you put a rating on those games. In the mid-90s, video games leaped to the big screen with the release of the Super Mario Bros. Live-action movie in 1993. I don't even want to talk about the live-action films of any of those. Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Mario. Heck no. Oh my goodness. Stick to the games. The Mortal Kombat movies aren't that bad, but still. With a much larger library of games, lower price point, and successful marketing, the Genesis had leapfrogged ahead of SNES, the Super Nintendo, in North America, but Sega was unable to find similar success in Japan. The rise of 3D gaming, up here we go! With the leap in computer technology, the 5th generation of video games ushered in the three-dimensional era of gaming. The Nintendo 64, I'm sure it's going to talk about this. Yep, it's further down. In 95, Sega released in North America its Saturn system, the first 32-bit console that played games on CDs rather than cartridges. Oh, okay, there you go. So that's when it started in 95. Let me see if I can see what that looks like. Okay, it looks sort of similar to the Genesis, but a little different. I never played the Genesis, a Sega console. I always had the NES and Super Nintendo, like the Nintendo-based stuff. But apparently this was the first console to introduce CDs instead of cartridges, because I'm sure that was annoying. Now the problem with CDs They scratch. A huge problem with CDs, they scratch, they spin around in the systems. And well, at least in the older systems, they spun around a lot. You could see it, like you open it up and it spun around and it stopped. Yeah, they scratch, so you had to like try your best to clean them off. Try your best to save it as much as you could, because if the disc had too many scratches on it, the system wasn't reading the game. So it essentially was still the same problem that you had with the cartridges, because on the cartridges, if they were too old or and messed up in any way, the system wasn't reading it. Same thing with the discs. If it was too scratched up, the system was not reading it. Five months ahead of schedule. The move was to beat Sony's first foray into video games, the PlayStation. This move was to beat Sony's first foray into video games, the PlayStation. So that started in '95, which sold for $100 less than the Saturn when it launched later that year. The following year, Nintendo released its cartridge-based 64-bit system, the Nintendo 64. So the Nintendo 64 still used cartridges. Though Sega and Nintendo each released their fair share of highly rated on-brand 3D titles, such as Virtua Fighter on the Saturn and Super Mario 64 on the Nintendo 64, the established video game companies couldn't compete with Sony's strong third-party support, which helped the PlayStation secure numerous exclusive titles. Hence why I have owned PlayStations my whole life, starting with the PS2. Simply put, Sony dominated the video game market, and would continue to do so into the next generation. In fact, the PS2 released in 2000, and it was able to play original PlayStation games. This would become the best-selling game console of all time. There you go. Hence why, again, I have been a PlayStation user my entire life. I've played on Xbox before, and I still own Nintendo systems as well. I have a Wii and I have a Switch. I've played on DS's and all that as well. Every station, and then also released for the Wii, it sucked on the Wii. It was never as good on the Wii because the Wii is too interactive. The Wii is always forcing you to be interactive in some way. Like, the remotes have to be within view of a sensor bar in order to even work. And, like, the games, they always try to get you to be interactive. Like, you gotta move your body and stuff like that. It's just not as fun. The controls are not as fun. The PlayStation is just easier. That and the Xbox. But the PlayStation controllers, I feel like, are a little bit easier than the Xbox controllers. But they're both fine. The first PlayStation console I owned was the PS2. I had the small one, I didn't have the big bulky one. My cousin had that. And, like I said, I have a gigantic bag of all the PS2 games that I've owned over the years. Because it's a whole lot. Alright, let's keep going. It was the first console that used DVDs, went up against the Sega Dreamcast, the Nintendo GameCube, and Microsoft's Xbox. Those were both released in 2001, the GameCube and the Xbox, which was by Microsoft. The Dreamcast, considered by many to be ahead of its time and one of the greatest consoles ever made for several reasons, including its capability for online gaming, was a commercial flop that ended Sega's console efforts. Sega pulled the plug on the system in '01, becoming a third-party software company henceforth. Well, so that's why I never even knew about Sega game systems. I only knew them to be a video game production company. Modern age of gaming in 2005 and 6. Yeah, the Xbox 360 and PS3, that was definitely the new age. of gaming. That was like the introduction to like the 3D animated types of games, like FPS type games and stuff, like the role-playing games that you see even today. Like, it wasn't the first, it wasn't, like, it's when 3D animated games got better. It's when 3D animated games really became better. Like the PS3 and Xbox 360, the graphics were so much better compared to the PS2 and the Wii. The Wii also came out in 2006, and yet their graphics were horrible. The Wii's graphics were horrible. I looked up what it outputs at. It outputs at 480. The Wii. The PS3, I'm pretty sure, does at least 720. And the Xbox 360, they gotta do at least 720. 1080 didn't start till much later. 1080 graphics didn't start till much later. So yeah, the Xbox 360, the PS3, and Nintendo Wii kicked off the modern age of high-definition gaming, though the PlayStation 3, the only system at the time to play Blu-rays, was successful in its own right. Sony for the first time faced stiff competition from its rivals. The Xbox 360, which has similar graphics capabilities to the PS3, was lauded for its online gaming ecosystem, and won far more Game Critic awards than the other platforms in 2007. It also featured the Microsoft Kinect, which sucked, a state-of-the-art motion capture system that offered a different way to play video games. The Kinect sucks. Just stick with the Wii. The Kinect never caught on with core gamers or game developers. Exactly, it sucked. I never even touched the Kinect because I knew it would suck. Just stick with the Wii. And despite being technologically inferior to the other two systems, the Wii trounced its competition in sales because Mario, Kirby, Zelda. Its motion-sensitive remotes made gaming more active than ever before, helping it appeal to a much larger slice of the general public. Yeah, that too. Including people in retirement homes. Towards the end of the decade and beginning of the next, video games spread to social media platforms like Facebook and mobile devices like the iPhone, reaching a more casual gaming audience. Rovio, the company behind the Angry Birds mobile device game and later Angry Birds animated movie, reportedly made a whopping $200 million in 2012. I don't think I ever played Angry Birds because that game looked like it was too addicting. Skylanders Spiral's Adventure, really, that's what he's from. Okay. Let's see what else. Trying to pick a song that we haven't, from a game we haven't seen yet. Alright. The 8th generation of video games began with the release of Nintendo Wii U in 2012, followed by the PS4 and Xbox One. This is when graphics really became great, like 1080 graphics. This is when the video game graphics really became good. I've owned everything from PlayStation up until the 5, starting from 2. I've owned the 2, 3, 4, and 5. I still have the 4, and I have a 5. I'm not sure what happened to my 3, but I think my 3 might still be in my garage or basement. But I don't have any more of my 3 games. Despite featuring a touchscreen remote control that allowed off-TV gaming and being able to play Wii games, the Wii U was a commercial failure, the opposite of its competition, and was discontinued in 2017. Which is why the Nintendo Switch started that same year and took over. Yeah, the Wii U was unfortunately not very successful. My cousin has a Wii U and a Switch. I never owned the Wii U. But yeah, in early 2017, Nintendo released its Wii U successor to the Nintendo Switch, which is a far better game system, except that I don't use the Joy-Cons because they suck. The only system to allow both television-based and handheld gaming. Microsoft released its 4K-ready console, the Xbox One X, in later 2017, and followed up in 2020 with the Xbox Series X and Series S. In 2020, Sony released the PS5. And there you go. That's pretty much the history. And ever since the PS5 and Xbox S and X came out, it's been sold out everywhere within an instant, like every single time. Everywhere you went, every gaming store had lines way outside for people trying to buy those systems. It's absolutely insane. I think the reason I went into GameStop one time was I was trying to buy a game that I couldn't even buy because it had only just came out and people were pre-ordering, so I couldn't get it in the store. I buy my Switch games online from now on. Like, I buy them digitally. I don't buy them in stores anymore. Just, it's creates less space in your closets that way, to just buy the games digitally if you can. But that's also another problem. The fact that you can buy games digitally instead of buying them in store. That's why a lot of companies are going to start running out of business. A lot of the internet has really destroyed industries, and I've done a research paper about this as well. Many industries are suffering because of the internet taking over. You get everything that you used to be able to do in person, you could do it completely over the internet now. I just watched the Family Guy episode yesterday. The episode where Peter wanted to rent a movie from Blockbuster because he thought that Blockbuster was still a thing. Blockbuster has not been a thing for years because Netflix took it out. What Netflix used to be was a service where you bought the movies online and it was delivered to your house. Now it's a streaming service. And there are many other streaming services now where you can just watch anything online rather than going to a store and buying it. Now, when a movie first comes out, they rely on the ticket sales for movie theaters, which is why they don't put it on streaming services until months after it's been in the theaters. That's smart. I feel like, so that companies don't go out of business, what people might end up doing is doing the same thing with video games and not making it available to buy digitally until it's been in stores and bought in stores for a few months. But that would suck, because I don't want to take up so much space in my room buying handheld copies of games. But this was definitely a fun stream. I definitely enjoyed talking about the history of video games. But that's where I'm gonna end it for now. It's been over 2 hours. You know, I tend to call it quits after 2 hours. But yeah, this was definitely interesting. I learned some new things. I learned some new things. Very interesting stream. I'll never get over the brown box. That was definitely very interesting. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something from all this too. And I hope you're happy with the systems that you're playing with now. I feel like the Nintendo Switch, you can't get any better than that. You can't do anything better than that. But I'm sure they'll come up with something. I'm sure the PlayStation's gonna keep going. I'm sure everybody's gonna line up for the PlayStation 6 and Xbox T, or whatever letter they want to throw out there, the Xbox A+, whatever letter they want to throw out. I've started to just be happy with what I had. Like, I find myself not wanting to upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11 because I'm happy with Windows 10. If they make a PS6, I don't want to buy it. I was actually happy with sticking with the PS4. I wasn't even gonna get a PS5. But my sister got us one for Christmas, so that was very cool. So of course I'm gonna keep it. And whenever a game comes out in the future for it that I want to play, I'll start streaming PS5 games. Right now I don't have any games that I want to stream on there. This was definitely a really cool stream though, so thank you guys for hanging out. And the next stream, Unless I change my mind again. I have to start, like, making promises, but the next stream, I should get back to Xenoblade 3. Like, I need to get back to that game. I need to hurry up and finish that game. The problem is once it hits 2 hours, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to stop. I wish I could do 3 hours, 4 hours. I wish I could be more of an endurance person, but that would have to wait until I'm doing this full time. And maybe until I'm on my own as well, because there are people who work from home here. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next stream.